Sometimes, love leads you to a crossroads.
He was handsome and exciting. There was nothing that she wouldn't do for him.
But choosing one path means leaving another behind.
Anytime you put someone else above you, you take away parts of you, which will lead you to do anything.
We had a massive manhunt within the city limits.
I just remember collapsing down at her feet and saying, what? And her repeating it over and over, he didn't make it, he didn't make it.
Once you head down a dark road, there's no turning back.
She was never going to give him up, and that was clear.
This was just a young lady who got involved with the wrong guy.
May 2015, Hattiesburg, Mississippi. A hidden southern gem, Hattiesburg is known as the hub city.
It's an hour and a half from Jackson, Mississippi, which is the capital. It's an hour and a half from Mobile, Alabama, New Orleans, the Gulf Coast, where there's casinos. It's smack dab in the middle of everything.
But on Saturday, May 9th, 2015, the day before Mother's Day, the peace of this city is shattered.
Around 7:30 p.m., Hattiesburg Dispatch received an emergency call from one of their officers, Officer Tate.
Officer Tate was able to get to his radio and call dispatch for help.
Into the radio, he whispers that he and another officer, Officer Dean, have both been shot. Officers Benjamin Dean and LaCorey Tate were both raised in Mississippi by loving families. Benjamin Joseph Dean, known to those close to him as BJ, was born July 8, 1980, and grew up with two older siblings.
We were the typical American family with 3 kids. I'm the oldest. Josh was 5 years younger than me, and BJ was 7 years younger than me.
Benjamin was the happiest baby that a person could have raised. He was full of laughter. He was full of joy.
He was always playing jokes. We always picked on each other. We were always outside, playing outside. He loved to hunt, loved to fish, anything outdoors.
Family and loyalty were extremely important to BJ, who met his wife in grade school and stayed committed to her from the start.
Can't remember a time where they were ever apart at all, even back to school. They got married right out of high school.
BJ and Robin soon started the family they'd always dreamed of and settled in Hattiesburg. In 2002, their daughter Mila was born, shortly followed by their son, Walker.
Mila, the firstborn of BJ's, her daddy was everything in the world to her. Her waking up and going to bed, it was just, she was a daddy's girl from the time she was born.
To support his family, BJ joined the Hattiesburg Fire Department.
As a first responder, he noticed that there were certain things that he really couldn't help with.
He noticed that the police officers were able to help people in ways that he was not. So he wanted to give that a try, and he joined the police academy.
In 1999, he officially became Officer Dean, graduating from the police academy with high marks.
Officer Dean was an amazing officer. I never saw him without a smile on his face. I used to call him Smiley. He was the country's swaggiest officer you could ever meet. Just an amazing person.
After 5 years on the force, Officer Dean was also willing to share his knowledge with the new recruits. Fresh out of the academy and barely into his 20s, LaCorey Tate had dreamed of wearing the badge his entire life.
My son's childhood dream was to become a police officer. Even as a child growing up, he loved police cars. We always had to get him a police car for Christmas. He would turn the siren on and it would echo all through the house.
He had a wonderful smile that I thought was very special, his smile and the small giggle. He absolutely loved people and was forgiving. I've never met anybody who didn't like him.
He was very humble. He was a gentle giant, very protective.
After graduating high school in 2011, LaCorey attended community college and became a certified auto technician. But just a year later, his career took an unexpected turn.
He was the manager at one of the automotive parts stores. And so he saw one day some deputies come in who asked him for some help. And as he helped them, he asked questions. And he, told me that he wanted to go to the academy. This was totally his idea.
In February 2014, LaCorey began his path to a career in law enforcement.
He absolutely loved every day of that academy. I saw someone who was determined to be a police officer.
Later that year, LaCorey fulfilled his dream and officially graduated.
My son was the best of the best. He was dedicated to the call. He took his oath very seriously, as well as putting on his uniform. Every morning, he took pride in putting it on. He knew he had a mission, and he lived up to it.
LaCorey even found a mentor on the force.
As a matter of fact, Officer Dean took him under his wings, and they hung out a lot. They became very close.
I often told him when he would go out there, don't forget to pray and take God with you on your job. You have that foundation and, use it.
He will always remind us, y'all, be aware of your surroundings. Watch the stuff you do. Be careful. And we would tell him the same thing. Be careful. Be aware of your surroundings.
But now, 25-year-old Officer LaCorey Tate and 36-year-old Officer Benjamin Dean have both been shot. Their fellow officers, along with paramedics, race to the scene.
Obviously, that is not a call that you want to receive. All boots were on the ground in the city of Hattiesburg. It was an overwhelming response from local law enforcement.
When first responders arrive, the officers are both unresponsive, and their guns look untouched.
They had both been shot, and they didn't have time to defend themselves. They appeared to be ambushed. Officer Dean had been shot in the face, close range.
Officer Dean was killed immediately, and I'm glad he did not suffer, but the fact that he was point-blank executed was horrific.
Officer Tate had a bullet wound in his back, but he was still alive. Paramedics raced him to the hospital and hope that it's not too late.
There's no sign of the shooter, but one thing does stand out.
They immediately notice that Officer Dean's patrol car is missing.
A massive manhunt ensues.
Tensions were high in our community. People were in fear.
On May 9, 2015, police in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, are on the scene of a shooting. that took the life of their fellow officer, 36-year-old Benjamin Dean, and critically injured another, 25-year-old officer LaCorey Tate. Officer Dean's family heads to the hospital and learns the devastating news.
My mother was crying hysterically, and there were people all up and down the hallways. And she just looked at me and said, "He didn't make it." And I just remember collapsing down at her feet and saying, What? And her repeating it over and over, "He didn't make it, he didn't make it."
It says in the Bible that blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the sons of God. And he was called, and he completed his call.
With a killer on the run in Officer Dean's patrol car, it's all hands on deck to track them down.
We had law enforcement from all different agencies that came in to assist us. We had state and federal and local agencies.
Over 100 officers from 10 agencies are involved in the manhunt.
Tensions were high in our community. People were in fear. We were in shock because this was not something that we're used to dealing with.
The scene is chaos, but investigators are able to locate several .40 caliber shell casings.
They also noticed that Officer Tate's vehicle had a bullet hole in the hood.
At the station, law enforcement go over all radio communication from the two officers.
Officer Dean that night conducted a traffic stop. He noticed that there was a vehicle that committed a traffic violation.
The radio traffic, the investigators learned that approximately at 7:30 p.m., Officer Dean saw a blue car on 4th Street, signaled to turn, but he noticed that it kept straight.
After pulling over the vehicle, Dean logged the license plate and then approached the car to speak with the driver.
He asked for, name, information, driver's license, registration, insurance, typical information that one would ask on a traffic stop.
The driver told him she was on her way to work, and she gave him a couple generic IDs.
But he went back to dispatch to run that information. The driver of that vehicle was Joni Calloway. Her license was no longer valid, and he was going to go back and do a further investigation in this case.
He then noticed the passenger in the vehicle moving around, and this made him uncomfortable.
He called for backup. Officer Tate then responded.
That's the last communication from either of them, until moments later, when Officer Tate called in that they both had been shot. Investigators run the plates of the vehicle that Officer Dean logged and discover the car is registered to the same person, 22-year-old Joni Calloway. Joni Calloway was born in Kenner, Louisiana, and raised in Oak Grove.
Growing up, Joni had a wonderful relationship with her family, especially her father. Being so close to her family made her want a family of her own.
After graduating high school, Joni worked at a manufacturing plant to support herself.
So one day at work, Joni met a man that was retired from the armed services, and they soon decided to get married.
In 2011, at just 18 years old, Joni gave birth to a baby boy.
Her son was everything to her, and she loved being a mom more than anything.
Then one day, while hanging out with friends, she met a man who changed her whole trajectory.
When she was driving around with her friends, they pick up another acquaintance named Marvin Banks. Turns out Joni and Marvin have a lot in common and immediately hit it off.
By December 2014, Joni and Marvin were having a full-blown affair. She visited him several times a week.
He brought excitement and adventure into her life that she had also been lacking.
But now, Joni Calloway is the only name investigators have connected to the double shooting of 2 of their officers. And they're about to come face to face with her.
She seemed emotional and was crying.
May 9th, 2015, Hattiesburg, Mississippi. It's been just an hour since Hattiesburg police officer Benjamin Dean was murdered and Officer LaCorey Tate seriously wounded.
Officer Dean attempted to make a traffic stop. It was a routine traffic stop that went horribly wrong, and the 2 were shot.
Law enforcement has identified the driver as 22-year-old Joni Calloway. While multiple patrol units scour the area in search of the shooter, police get another lead.
Another 911 call was received from a woman named Natalie Puck. Natalie was actually attending a festival that was not far from the scene of the crime. Natalie tells 911 that a woman had just come up to her and that the woman seemed jittery and very nervous.
She told Natalie that she gave someone a ride and he just suddenly shot a couple of police officers. She alleges that she had no idea that he was going to do that. She seemed emotional and was crying.
And Natalie listens to her tell this elaborate story. So Natalie is really the person who talks to 911.
Natalie told her that she was going to have to call police, and the woman replied yes, and an ambulance.
Law enforcement quickly head to the location and identify the woman as Joni Calloway. They also find her car abandoned in a nearby parking lot.
So Joni Calloway was actually transported back to the Hattiesburg Police Department where we prepared to interview her.
Around 9 p.m., Lieutenant Myers sits down with Joni.
I just wanted to feel of who she was. Who was Joni Calloway? You know, was she someone that was an innocent bystander? Was she someone just dragged into this? Or was she actively involved in this case? My initial interaction with Ms. Calloway was that she was withholding some information. She knew a lot more than what she was saying.
When asked about who shot the officers, Joni claims she doesn't know.
This guy's in your car, and he committed this murder while he was in your car. How do you not know him?
She adamantly denied knowing who this person was. And she started out saying that he was someone that she just saw at the gas station. He asked for a ride, then she admitted to knowing him.
She told officers that she just knew him because she used to buy drugs off of him, marijuana, and that he just asked for a ride. He said, "Hey, will you give me a ride to the convenience store nearby on Main Street?" And so she said, "Sure."
She says, then they got pulled over by the police.
She had no idea that he had a firearm on him and that she had no idea that he was going to do this. And she didn't know his name. She didn't know where he lived. She clearly was protecting him.
After some time, she admitted only knowing him as his nickname, Cuz.
She gradually gave out bits and pieces to where she acknowledged knowing him a little bit more and more and more.
Then, investigators get bad news from the hospital.
Officer Tate succumbed to his gunshot wound at the hospital.
They kicked everything up into a high gear. So yeah, we're not playing any games now.
Lieutenant Myers turns up the heat on Joni.
Ms. Calloway had her 4-year-old child. We need to worry about getting you home to your 4-year-old, because if not, you're gonna go away for a long time. Somebody else is gonna be raising your baby. I was just that honest with her. But she consistently and continuously lied.
Nothing seems to make Joni crack. And the interview comes to a close.
She spent about 5 hours lying to protect that individual, and all the while we were trying to locate him.
Meanwhile, Officer Tate's family and the entire department mourn the loss of the young recruit.
Once I found out, of course I still got hope. This is a mistake. They're gonna bring him back to life in the hospital. You're doing anything for hope. That was terrible for me.
The news of these two officers losing their lives hit everyone pretty hard. Hattiesburg Police Department had not lost an officer in 30 years.
At 10 p.m. that evening, the Hattiesburg Police Department reaches out to the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation.
The Mississippi Bureau of Investigations came in and it took over the investigation for us.
Meanwhile, officers scouring the area make a discovery that will supercharge the investigation.
They find Officer Dean's police car actually a few blocks from the scene, parked in a dead end.
And that's where we were able to obtain the dash cam video.
May 9th, 2015, Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Just 3 hours after 2 Hattiesburg police officers were shot and killed during a routine traffic stop, the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation has taken over the case.
Joni Calloway, the driver, had already been found and interviewed, but she refused to say who was in the car with her.
Luckily, they've just found Officer Dean's stolen patrol car.
We were able to locate the vehicle a quarter of a mile from the scene near railroad tracks, abandoned.
Finding the car, with the dash cam intact, is a significant turning point in the case.
When Officer Dean actually pulled over the blue car, his dash camera automatically turned on. Investigators were shocked at what they found.
We were able to see exactly how the crime occurred.
They see Officer Dean exit the vehicle and walk to the driver's side of the blue car and speak with Joni. They see a passenger in the car.
Then, Officer Dean returns to his patrol car to check the identification that Joni gave him.
In the video, investigators can see that both the female and male passenger were moving around quite a bit. Calloway's front passenger was putting something under his seat. This is what made Officer Dean call for assistance.
The footage shows Officer Tate arrive on the scene a few minutes later. The two men approach Joni's vehicle together.
Officer Dean asks her to step out of the vehicle. He talks to her.
Officer Tate goes to the passenger side of the vehicle.
He goes around to the other side and asks the front passenger to step outside of the vehicle. He eventually steps outside of the car with his hands up, while Officer Tate asks him routine questions.
But then, the man pivots back to the car and grabs something from the seat. The next thing investigators see on the footage is disturbing.
He shot Officer Dean in the face. Officer Dean was point-blank executed at the scene. So it was horrific that law enforcement had to watch one of their very own be murdered in such a gruesome way. Joni Calloway was standing outside of the vehicle when the shots were fired. She then gets back in her car, puts the car in drive, but holds the parking brake, applies the parking brake. For several seconds, yells, "Marvin, get in the car." So she waited for him. The perpetrator did not get back in the car because there was another officer still on scene, and that was Officer LaCorey Tate. And you hear shots fired. Joni then drives into the direction of downtown Hattiesburg.
Even though Officer Tate was bleeding out on the ground, he still managed to make one final call over his radio.
He was about 1 year out of the academy, a good officer, and of course, there's nothing that could have prepared him for an incident like this.
Despite the reality the video holds, it is a major asset to the investigation.
Not only do police have footage of the murder, they also potentially have the shooter's name, straight from the mouth of Joni Calloway.
She says his name. She was screaming for him to get in the car so she could help drive him away after committing this murder. She said his name, Marvin.
On the morning of May 10th, the Mississippi Bureau of Investigations takes another crack at interviewing Joni Calloway.
We need a name, right? And it's high alert in the city of Hattiesburg because this guy's armed and dangerous and he will stop at nothing.
But Joni insists that she only knows him as Cuz.
She won't give specifics, she's evasive. So everyone has a right to remain silent, right? You don't have to talk to law enforcement. But if you do, you can't lie. And she did that for hours. She was never gonna give him up, and that was clear.
With the first name Marvin and his image on video, it doesn't take police long to identify him on their own.
Then they showed that to individuals in the law enforcement community, and some of them recognized him because he was on probation, was a convicted felon, and they were able to say, yes, that's Marvin Banks.
Mr. Banks had several prior arrests for drug infractions and gang involvement, so he was known to the police department.
It was pretty clear that he was a violent criminal. It wasn't a question of when Marvin was going to be violent. It was just to what extent.
Investigators are able to track down one of his neighbors, who also happens to be his best friend, Timothy Miller.
Timothy says that he has known Marvin since 1995. He grew up right across the street from him in Hattiesburg.
And Timothy says Joni Calloway knows him too, very well.
Timothy claims that the two of them are in a relationship and have been dating for about 6 months.
This entire time, she knew exactly who Marvin Banks was. She knew where he lived, she knew his mom, she knew his friends, and she was not just giving him a ride to one of the local convenience stores. She was in an ongoing affair with this man.
Investigators are able to reach one of Marvin's neighbors after learning that Joni Calloway has been lying to police to protect her lover. MBI finally gets the tip they've been waiting for.
So there was a call that came in where he was seen possibly at a local establishment, a hotel.
Multiple law enforcement agencies, including a SWAT team, charged the motel, hoping to finally take down Marvin Banks.
And they know that all of their lives are on the line by trying to apprehend him.
May 10th, 2015, Hattiesburg, Mississippi. Police get a tip on the whereabouts of suspected cop killer Marvin Banks.
A clerk at a local motel actually says that she saw the news coverage of the story and a photo of Banks. She said that he rented a room at the motel earlier and that he was actually still there now.
Units responded, the SWAT team was there, and they know that all of their lives are on the line by trying to apprehend him. So clearly, right, they're probably a little bit in fear of what could go down during that takedown.
Once the area is secured, the SWAT team gets the go-ahead.
They storm the room where Marvin is supposedly staying, and luckily, he doesn't put up a fight.
With the assistance of MBI, Mississippi Bureau of Investigations, Marvin Banks, he was apprehended and brought in.
At the police station, Banks refuses to talk.
He asked investigators for a lawyer, and that was the end of his interrogation.
We had him, and he knows we had him. There was no getting away from that.
Marvin Banks is charged with 2 counts of capital murder, 1 count of being a felon in possession of a firearm, and grand theft.
Not only was Marvin Banks arrested, we also arrested Curtis Banks, which is his brother, and several other of his family members. They were arrested for hindering apprehension.
Curtis is charged with 2 counts of accessory after the fact of capital murder.
News of the arrests spread like wildfire.
I was so glad that they found these people and started rounding them up the same night. And I was so thankful for that, because I was praying that this wouldn't be a case where these people got away.
It gave us relief knowing that those people were off the streets and hopefully couldn't do more harm.
With Banks in custody, MBI investigators focus their attention back on Joni. And she finally gives in.
She then admitted to knowing Marvin Banks, and she did identify him as the shooter.
She said that she was seeing him and that his name was not Cuz, and she didn't just give him a ride. She had been with him all day. She had told them that Marvin got the gun from underneath the seat and said that he wasn't about to go back and that he was going to basically kill this officer.
She says she told him to put away the gun and not do anything rash, but he refused.
Now, in that moment, did Joni Calloway alert anyone? Did she do anything to stop it? No, she didn't.
After Joni's statement, it seems clear why Marvin took the lives of the 2 officers.
He made a decision that in no shape or form was he going back to prison that evening. He absolutely made this decision to kill our officers.
Police charged Joni with 2 counts of capital murder.
Joni and her boyfriend can both receive the death penalty.
But before Marvin faces a death penalty in court, life deals him another hand.
In December 2016, Marvin Banks died from potential drug abuse.
We know that from Marvin Banks's family and his history that he abused drugs daily. A medical examiner's office did find that he died of heart complications, most likely due to chronic and long-standing drug abuse.
8 months after Marvin's death, his brother, Curtis Banks, pleads guilty.
In August of 2016, Curtis Banks pleads guilty to accessory after the fact of capital murder. He is sentenced to 20 years in prison. He also pleads guilty to a substance charge and receives 5 years.
Other individuals that were involved in this, that assisted him or had, participated in the crime, maybe sold the stolen firearm to him, these individuals all pled and were prosecuted. The one person who would not plead guilty, the one person who wanted a trial, who professed her innocence, was Joni Calloway.
We all hope for a fulfilling life, but for 20% of us, anxiety and depression can get in the way. Brightside's mental health providers understand and can help you. Take steps forward and feel like yourself again. Healing begins at brightside.com.
Spring 2017. Hattiesburg, Mississippi. After Marvin Banks died in prison before he could stand trial for the murders of 2 remarkable police officers, everyone who aided him pleads guilty to their charges, except one, Joni Calloway.
Joni refused to admit any guilt and kept professing her innocence.
In May 2017, After a change of venue, 24-year-old Joni Calloway goes to trial in Oxford, Mississippi. Joni's charges are downgraded to attempted accessory after the fact of capital murder and hindering prosecution in the first degree.
From a prosecution standpoint, in our hearts, a lot of us feel like Joni Calloway should have been charged with capital murder. But here's the thing, you can't charge someone unless you have evidence. That evidence has to support a verdict beyond every reasonable doubt.
Prosecutors lay out their case against Joni. They show the jury the dash cam video of her trying to help Marvin escape after shooting Officer Dean and Officer Tate.
Joni, wanting to protect her boyfriend, was willing to help him as he murdered 2 officers in cold blood.
She was definitely a part of this. She saw it go down. She did nothing to stop it.
They also show interrogation footage of Joni lying and buying him more time to escape authorities.
She absolutely knew who he was. She was engaged in a very long affair with him.
Yet, despite the evidence, Joni's defense combats the prosecution and paints her relationship with Marvin in a different light.
This was just a young lady who got involved with the wrong guy.
They say when Marvin started shooting, Joni did the only thing she could think of.
Her actions were intended to try to get him to stop. She had courage to try to get a man with a gun shooting 2 police officers to stop. She tried to interrupt his rampage.
Joni's defense says her fear prevented her from speaking up during her interrogation.
It seems somewhat short-sighted to charge someone with hindering prosecution about identifying a man who she just saw murder 2 police officers. I think you can explain away a lot of her bad decisions both before the incident and after the incident with fear.
I find that hard to believe because she saw what kind of monster he was. She invited him into the car and tried to help him get away. She does everything she can to lie and protect him.
Joni chooses not to take the stand in her own defense. And on May 7th, the jury returns with their verdict.
And they did not deliberate long. They returned a verdict of guilty on both counts.
Joni Calloway was sentenced to 20 years for accessory after the fact of capital murder and 5 years for hindering apprehension.
For 2 outstanding officers and incredible people, their sacrifice will never be forgotten.
It really affected our city. Every day we put this uniform on, we take a chance of not making it home.
These 2 amazing police officers, they showed up for work that day. They showed up for work. They were really about protecting and serving their communities. They should still be here today. It's heartbreaking.
I would tell him all the time, you know, there's people out there who will take your life for just the simple reason that you wear this uniform. And he was not afraid of dying. I think I owe it to him to never forget him.
I want people to know that my brother was a great man. He was a great friend, a good husband, and a good father. And he cared for his community. And we need more people in the world like him.
The paths we choose in life can have lasting effects. Joni Calloway went from a young married woman with a little boy she adored to a convicted felon sitting in prison, all because of her love for a man.
Anytime you put someone else above you, you take away parts of you, which will lead you to do anything. Joni Calloway put the needs of Marvin Banks above her her family, her child, and which caused her to disregard the lives of Officer Dean and Tate, which led her to have 25 years in the state penitentiary.
Be careful where your heart wanders, for love's wrong turn can lead you into shadows you never intended to chase. One misstep, and the warmth of affection can turn to a cold, unyielding darkness. Some paths are meant to be left behind.
Welcome to Always True Crime, a podcast network bringing you gripping real-life stories that you won't be able to stop thinking about. Discover your next true crime obsession at alwaystruecrime.com.
Carrie Jade is an au pair, a therapist, a mother, a woman on the run. But Carrie Jade does not exist. This is the story of how one woman took on over 6 different identities, infiltrated the lives of vulnerable people, and lied her way into gaining their trust, until she finally got tangled up in her very own web of lies. Join me, Sue Perkins, and journalist Catherine Denkinson for Carrie Jade Does Not Exist. Listen now wherever you get your podcasts.
The police were closing in. But how was the Beast of Belvedere caught? Find out on Murder Mile. Situated to the side of Bursted Woods, just shy of Barnhurst Station, and overlooking a roundabout at the junctions of Everett Road and Barnhurst Road, sat a tiny flat perched above a car showroom. It wasn't the kind of place that anyone would choose to live, as there was no bed, sofa, telly, or any personal effects. Just a kettle, a cup, an overflowing ashtray, a bin full of empty takeaway cartons, and an electric heater. With a bare bulb off, the room was ominously dark, so no one could see the occupant who was sat at a desk by a window. Silent and still, their binoculars spying as streams of women and young girls walked by, unaware. Into a logbook, the following was written. Friday the 10th of August, 1984, 2 p.m, second shift. For months, 21-year-old WPC Julie Edwards had been on observation duty. A dull job split into 8 hours as one of a team of officers keeping surveillance on 18 locations where the Beast of Belvedere had struck, including Abbey Wood, Mottingham, Lee, Hither Green, Birch Walk and Falconwood. For many long hours, she would patiently sit and wait and watch, biding her time until a certain someone caught her eye. And oddly, being just 2 miles south of Lesness Abbey Woods, this was not unlike his suspected hideout. It had been a year since PC Clifford Thomas had stood on a thick brush of holly leaves, heard a metal clink, and moving aside a sheet of corrugated iron, unearthed a 15-foot by 3-foot tunnel full of rapists' apparel. Situated between Bexley Heath and the North Kent lines, in the dead centre of the 4 square miles where he hunted his prey, detectives were buoyed having found his lair, and soon him. The scene was secured, the evidence bagged, and whisked off to the forensics lab, which took weeks. Only their jubilation would soon turn to despair, as when detectives examined the contents further, the basic items he'd left behind, like the candle, the brush, the mug, the tea bags, the jar of sugar and the bag of food, proved to be too generic to trace to a single shop or purchase. And like the mattress, which was covered in polythene, no fingerprints were found as they'd been wiped away by the weather. As for the spare clothes, lab tests showed no incriminating stains like blood or semen, and they couldn't be linked to any known rapists. The blouse, stockings and knickers were examined, but their prior owners were never identified, and perhaps being purchased for cross-dressing or stolen for a simple thrill, they couldn't be attributed to any reported victims. The empty beer cans and cigarette butts proved equally to be as fruitless. And believing that this was a military-style hideout, detectives spent weeks seeking out sex offenders with military backgrounds. But 2 teenagers later admitted that they'd dug the tunnel being army cadets who were practicing building a den, and stated that they'd stopped using it a year before it was found. With his hideout blown, the rapist never returned. Detectives could never determine if this was the hideout of the Beast of Belvedere, or just one of the several sex attackers who were preying on lone vulnerable women in this area during that era. But as a predator who didn't sit and wait, as this one had, but changed his times, places and methods, it was unlikely to be him. He last attacked on Friday the 14th of October 1983, having failed to rape a 14-year-old schoolgirl in Bursted Woods. By this point, he was 7 attacks in to his 15-month spree beginning in April 1983, with a 16-year-old girl at Falconwood Station. And now they were increasing in frequency and ferocity. Every victim told the same story. He followed them to somewhere isolated, an alley, a station, a train. He struck from behind, muffled their mouth with his left hand, put a knife to their neck with his right. He threatened to kill them if they didn't do exactly what he said. And if they struggled or screamed, he battered them with his fists, a bottle, or a block of wood, rendering them senseless or semi-conscious. He was always calm, quiet, softly spoken. He said very little and never wore a disguise. As for his description, it was so generic it matched thousands of men across London and Kent, and also said to be a scruffy manual labourer with a stale smell and a local accent, with his clothes being cheap and commonplace, and having no visible scars or tattoos. There was nothing unique to identify him. His victims were all aged between 14 and 34, and said to be small, but all different. He didn't target one type of woman, but he regarded all of them as whores, who he blamed for something which had ripped at his very being. He knew the train times, the timetables, and every isolated spot to commit his attacks, and yet he never strayed beyond the areas that, as a local man, he knew so well. And unlike one rapist who'd built a hideout to sit and wait, he attacked randomly on instinct and whim. Examining each attack, which occurred roughly every 2 weeks to a month, based on the fact that he never struck in the early mornings or very late at night, mostly on weekdays, and often between the hours of midday and mid-afternoon, police surmised that he was either intermittently employed, that he worked a shift pattern, and rarely attacking at the weekends, that it was likely he was a family man. The beast's name was Alan Peary. Born on the 25th of March 1949, mere streets from Barnhurst Station on the Bexley-Heath line, Peary was the second of 5 children to Joseph, a fair-haired, grey-eyed man who came from the northern city of Durham, and having fallen in love during the Second World War with Gwendolyn Phillips, a local girl from Welling, just one stop up from Falconwood. They married in 1945, and a family followed. This area was his home, his everything. And almost every street, he knew it like the back of his hand, as these 4 square miles is where he would work and live for the rest of his life, but where he also ruined many lives. Said to be not bright, but good at manual trades and woodwork, Peary scraped by with a basic pass age 15, having been educated at Piccadilly School on the Erith Road in Belvedere, not far from the police station, where less than 2 decades later, a team of detectives launched a manhunt to search for him. Predictably, he matched the description of the Beast of Belvedere fairly well, being 5'10", slim, with brown fair hair, grey-brown eyes, and like his father, he had a gap between his 2 front teeth. Little is known about his early life, as the only traumatic moment seems to have been the death of his father in March 1974 and his mother remarrying in 1979. But as by that point he was 25, employed, married, and had already moved out of the house. It didn't impact him or his siblings, as it may have done if he'd been a boy. With no violence, abuse, theft or perversions reported in his past, he was a nobody who blended into the shadows. D.S. Hawkins, who headed up the manhunt, remarked when he was caught,
"There was nothing particularly unusual about him at all. He's a boring type, perhaps a little strange and pathetic in his own way."
And as his own wife Linda would later state, "He was a very moody type, but he was a real loner basically." Living an unremarkable life, age 15, Peary's first job was as a trainee machinist at Parkway Timbers in Belvedere, where he lasted for a year and was described as satisfactory, but nothing special. By 1965, seeking a job with career prospects, Peary began working for British Rail as a baggage porter at Dartford Station, a large local terminus covering the Dartford Loop, Bexley and North Kent lines, and work in shifts by loading luggage on and off trains for hundreds, if not thousands of lone women. Part of his job was to know every train, every carriage, every station, and every detail about the timetable. After 3 years at Dartford, where he shuttled suitcases between Charing Cross, London Bridge and Waterloo East, as well as many of the network's satellite stations. Although quiet, he'd impressed his bosses in clearly being passionate about his job. In 1968, he was promoted to trainee signalman. He'd found his place in life, and although a little sullen, he would succeed. Only he couldn't control his basest of dark urges. On an unspecified date in October 1968, a 16-year-old girl boarded a train at Charing Cross. It was mid-afternoon, on a weekday, and she was heading to her home in Dartford. When the guard's whistle blew at London Bridge and the train pulled away, 19-year-old Alan hopped into her closed compartment, where she sat alone and vulnerable in this rape trap. Muffling her mouth of any screams, nicking her neck with a knife, threatening to kill her and exposing his genitals. The violence he used against her was so severe she had to be hospitalized. And when arrested, he was charged with her attempted murder. In November 1969, Alan Peary was tried at the Old Bailey for a violent and sadistic crime for which he should have been sentenced to 10 years. But with this being his first offence and having a good work record, it was reduced to the lesser charge of attempting to render a woman incapable with intent. He served his punishment in a little over a year in a borstal for young offenders and was out by the turn of 1970. He was free but jobless, having been sacked by British Rail. And as far as we know, he didn't attack any other women until the 16-year-old girl at Falconwood, where his spree began. It's hard to pin down why this violent rapist suddenly stopped after his first known attack. But he did, and this is most likely why the detectives struggled to identify him as the Beast of Belvedere. For 15 years, he was a reformed character. A father, a husband, and a working man who committed no crime. In 1968, he met Linda Gillett. She recalled, "I knew Alan through friends. He was going out with a friend of mine. When he went to prison, I started to write to him, and when he got out, we went together. I knew he was in prison for an attack on a girl, but I believed it was for taking a handbag or something." For seeing him only for the kind man that he was. In July 1970, they married at St Paul's Church in Erith, just half a mile from Birch Walk. Living in several council houses in Erith, they were said to be happily married for 11 years. Together they raised 4 children, and as Linda herself said, "He was a good husband, really. He worked hard, he loved the children. He wasn't a drinker or anything bad, and he never hit me or the children. He was ordinary, dull and unremarkable. She recalled, "Our sex life was normal, healthy." And with Peary said to have no sadism or perversions, was this why his dark urges remained hidden for 15 years? Because he'd found love and a sex life. After the birth of their last child, being happy, but knowing that any more children on his modest wage could cause splinters in their warm matrimonial bed, they agreed that Alan would have a vasectomy. But this, he says, changed him. In 1978, while 30-year-old Peary was working as a milkman, he met 15-year-old Sharon Wenham. Linda recalled, "Alan denied it, but things were not going well between us. When I came back home one afternoon, I found them in bed together, and that was the end of it." They divorced in 1981. Linda remarried, had another child, and they both remained friendly for the sake of their 4 children. In January 1982, Sharon and Alan married, and being young, she wanted children of her own. In late 1982, Peary had an operation to reverse his vasectomy. But as he said,
"It was a failure, and I felt that I was a failure too. I could see that deep inside this really hurt her. I felt I was no longer a man. After this, we argued more, and the arguments got worse."
And as the psychiatrist who assessed him stated,
"It was the angry reaction of feeling less than a man that launched his catalogue of crimes against women."
this may also explain his erectile dysfunction, as well as why he left no sperm at the crime scenes. The first known attack in his 15-month spree was on Saturday the 23rd of April 1983 at Falconwood Station. His victim, the 16-year-old girl. He attacked mostly by day and on weekdays when his new wife was busy. He stuck to the areas he knew and may have struck when he was looking for work. No one on the network recognized him, as even when posters of his photo fit were plastered on the walls in September 1983, as he'd been sacked from British Rail 15 years before. Since then, he'd become a reformed character, married, boring, and unassuming. But a month after he attacked the 14-year-old in Bursted Woods, he struck again. Wednesday the 16th of November 1983, back at Falconwood Station on the Bexley-Heath line. Just after 7 p.m, a 17-year-old receptionist departed the Charing Cross train. It was cold, damp, and windy. She later gave an interview to the Daily Express in which she used the pseudonym Carol X. These are her words. "I went to the minicab office and was told I'd have to wait. I thought, blow it, I'll just walk. I thrust my hands deeper into my sheepskin coat. There were people about, but most of the faces I normally travelled with had gone on ahead." She crossed over the bridge at Rochester Way, where the beast had raped the 16-year-old just 7 months before, and headed into the darkness of Falconwood Field. It was short, flat, sparse, and she knew it well. But so did Peary. "I was halfway across when I heard footsteps behind me. There's a penknife I normally carry, and I remember thinking, I wish I had it on me now. Only its tiny blade would be useless against a prolific sex attacker who had honed his method. I was grabbed round the neck and there was a knife at my throat. A man said, 'Shut your mouth or I'll cut your throat.' It drew blood. I said, 'I've got money. Leave me alone and you can take it.' He said, 'I don't want your money,' and dragged me by the arm to the side of the field. Lights were on in the houses which surrounded them, but being too dark to be seen, too far to be heard, and if she screamed, she knew she'd be dead. He made me lie down. I begged him not to hurt me, and then he raped her. Carol X recalled, "He ordered me to stay where I was, and he took my money anyway. as he fled in a half-run, half-walk. But the second he was out of sight,
I went to the nearest house for help.
Alan Angus, a 57-year-old engineer, heard her frantic knocking on the door of his house on Welling Way.
She was crying and distraught, and very frightened. We brought her in and gave her a glass of sherry to try and calm her down.
And although all she wanted to do was to go home and get herself clean, she did the right thing. Carol X said,
When the police arrived, I talked for about half an hour. I kept saying, what am I going to tell my mum and dad? Nothing like this had ever happened to me before. I think I would have gone to pieces if I hadn't been treated so kindly by the police. Now, I'm angry more than frightened.
His description was broadcast across the police radio.
White, late 20s, 5'11", clean-shaven, scruffy, slim, brownish hair, wearing dark trousers or jeans, gap tooth, smells strongly of stale cigarettes.
And although with him attacking at a rate of roughly 2 a month, this meant that another was imminent. D.S. Hawkins stated that thanks to Carol X,
the prospects of finding him have never been better.
A joint operation based at Belvedere Police Station was set up between the British Transport Police and the Met Police, expanding the search to cover 33 square miles to Charing Cross. Extra officers were drafted in, patrols were stepped up, and surveillance operations were established. But prolific rapists don't just stop. So as predicted, 2 weeks later, he attacked again. Wednesday the 7th of December 1983 at 8 p.m. Back near Bursted Woods, just shy of Barnard Station, a 25-year-old receptionist ran to the bus stop near the roundabout, but her bus had already pulled away. Even though it was beginning to snow, having decided to walk the few stops to Bexley, she passed the car showroom and sticking to the path, even with the Erith Road being well lit and busy, she heard the footsteps of a man coming up behind her. And then she felt a hand, a blade, and heard a threat to kill. She knew exactly who he was and what he wanted, as coming face to face with a late 20s to early 30s man, tall, lean, long nose, scruffy hair, faded jeans, bomber jacket, a toothy grin, and stinging of ciggies. If she screamed, she'd be stabbed by the beast of Belvedere. And if she didn't, then something worse. Frozen in fear, she did as he said. And although cars and pedestrians passed nearby, nobody stopped to help her, as with his hand draped around her shoulders and the two of them slowly walking side by side, they looked like a couple in a loving embrace as he led her off the pavement and into Bursted Woods. For 4 minutes, he dragged her further from the lights, deeper into the darkness, her knowing that with every step, her fate was growing closer and her chance of escape becoming ever distant. And when he got her to an isolated spot where no one would be able to see or hear her, he raped her. He had raped or sexually assaulted at least 9 women, possibly 11, but police suspected as many as 17. The story hit the papers by the morning, television by the evening, and with anger rising, the day after, a group of protesters waved placards outside Belvedere Police Station, demanding that they catch him, rather than waiting for him to attack again.
At Belvedere, the women plan to march on the police station, demanding more protection. The police say they're sorry the women feel they have to make this protest this evening, and they point out that they have put a great number of resources into the hunt for the attacker, including bringing in the SPG. Trisha Ingrams at Charing Cross.
It was the moment that it became a national news story. And then suddenly, he stopped. The beast went silent, as even with his crimes escalating in frequency and violence, abruptly, there was nothing. Not a rape or assault committed in the following months matched his description or method. Detectives wondered,
had he quit?
Was he in prison?
Or has the media coverage scared him away?
It's something we will never know. Maybe he found work. Perhaps he was arguing less with Sharon about babies. Or perhaps he was just laying low. But could a rapist really stop his dark urges? No. Several months later, he struck again. Monday the 23rd of July 1984. A 17-year-old girl left Bexley College and boarded the 12:02 train at Bexley Heath, travelling to Charing Cross for a job interview. She sat alone in a 6-seat closed compartment. When at Welling Station, Alan Peary boarded the train just as it pulled away. And he attacked her almost instantly. A hand, a knife, a threat.
Shut up or I'll kill you.
He violently wrenched off her clothes and raped her. Just 2 minutes later, when the train arrived at Falconwood, he fled. But with it being daytime, he was seen not only by his victim, but the station master and the ticket attendant. And although she was blooded and traumatized, having pulled the emergency cord, the train was stopped, the police were called, the crime scene was sealed off, and detectives knew one thing for certain. The beast was back. Surveillance was stepped up. Across the network, teams of officers worked 24 hours a day for weeks in 8-hour shifts at 18 covert locations where he'd attacked before, like Falconwood, Welling, Birch Walk, Dartford. And with a 25-year-old receptionist having been attacked near Bursted Woods after she'd missed her bus last December. On Friday the 10th of August 1984, WPC Julie Edwards was sat at a window with a pair of binoculars and a notepad. The hours were long, dull, but vital. And soon her persistence would pay off when she spotted a man with a startling resemblance to him, loitering at a bus stop on Erith Road. Alerted, 2 plainclothes officers arrived in an unmarked car as Peary boarded a bus. They tailed him, and getting off the bus just a mile away, he headed to Birch Walk, a place with anonymous significance for its victims, and now being arrested for the Beast of Belvedere. Over 5 days, he was questioned at Belvedere Police Station by DS Colin Hawkins. 33-year-old Alan Peary confessed to 6 rapes, 2 assaults of which the police knew about, and 2 which had never been reported. On Tuesday the 14th of August, he was committed to trial at Bexley Magistrates Court, during which it is said,
he trembled and cried during the 10-minute hearing.
And given his violence, his bail was denied. D.S. Hawkins was expecting to find a monster when he met Peary, a callous and cruel maniac, given the sadism and cruelty he'd inflicted.
But instead, there's nothing unusual about the man at all. He appears a boring type, perhaps a little strange and pathetic in his own way.
He was so unremarkable, even his friends and family didn't believe it was him, as he was so unlikely. During his questioning, Peary wept.
I've caused great suffering to my victims. I hope that my capture will ease their minds in time, and I hope that they will be able to forget what I've done to them and forgive me, maybe a little.
But even with detectives able to prove 6 rapes and 2 assaults, he was investigated for a string of attacks on the Dartford Loop, North Kent and Bexley lines since the late 1960s. One case his method matched perfectly was the murder of German tourist Heidi Manilk on board the Charing Cross to West Wickham train on Sunday the 8th of July 1973, as later confessed to by Patrick Mackay, who later denied it. But with the suspect seen by 2 boys being 5 inches shorter, 15 years older, and with an Arabic appearance, this wasn't the Beast of Belvedere, but another prolific rapist. Held at Wormwood Scrubs Prison, Peary sent letters to his ex-wife Linda, blaming the sex attacks on others, stating,
"The kids were pulling away from me after the divorce. Then Sharon wanted children. This hurt me very much, and we went to have the reversal operation done. But it failed. I really thought she'd rejected me, It was the final blow. I could no longer think straight. I felt like a freak, but everyone was laughing at me. I finally cracked and couldn't remember what I was doing. I had to hate.
Which of course was a lie to pacify himself. He blamed his string of rapes and sexual assaults from 1983 to 1984 on his wife's rejection and his failed vasectomy in 1982. But he was first charged with the attempted murder of a 16-year-old girl, having violently beaten and failed to rape her on a train as far back as October 1968. Of which even some people say it's hard to believe that was his first offence. He told a psychiatrist,
"Deep inside, I had a very bad problem, but I was too scared and confused to seek help. I'm glad I've been caught now because now I can receive the help that I so desperately need."
Declared sane, on Monday the 14th of January 1985, he was tried by Judge Popplewell at the Old Bailey. It lasted just 54 minutes. But unlike his first trial back in 1969, when he was given a pitiful sentence of 1 year at a Borstal, admitting his guilt to all charges, on Monday the 14th of January 1985, Alan Peary was given 6 life sentences to run concurrently, with 2 years for each sexual assault. Summing up, the judge stated,
"You terrified and humiliated these victims. I think you are too dangerous a man to be left at large. The public have the right to be protected from men like you, so I propose the maximum sentence."
Linda, his ex-wife, got on with her life. But Sharon, having heard the evidence and the charges, claimed,
"I'll write to him daily. I'll stand by him until the end."
2 days after his conviction, Peary pleaded to the Home Office for permission for him and his wife to have a child by artificial insemination.
Sharon said, "I don't care what people think. I know Alan as a kind and loving man. If it's possible for him to give me a baby, that would be wonderful."
Of which Linda retorted,
"His own children are going through enough at this time. Surely there's no need to put another child through this agony."
As well as his victims, who after their attack may never have children of their own.
There wouldn't be a girl on Pitcairn once they reached the age of 10 that was still a virgin.
I'm journalist Luke Jones, and for almost 2 years I've been investigating a shocking story that has left deep scars on generations of women and girls from Pitcairn.
People will get away with what they can get away with.
In the Pitcairn trials, I'll be uncovering a story of abuse and the fight for justice that has brought a unique Pacific island to the brink of extinction. Listen now, wherever you get your podcasts.
So there we go, folks. Oh, what a horrible man! What a horrible man! I mean, what did you expect, really? He wasn't going to be a saint or a lovely guy. Yeah, horrible. Anyway, that was, as mentioned last week, that was one of those cases where I stumbled across it during the Patrick Mackay series, episode 1 about Heidi Manilk. I kept hearing the name about Alan Peary, and I was just like, I want to know more about this. And we've never covered a rapist before on Murder Mile, but it was one of those things that I just felt had to be done. Anyway, welcome to Extra Mile, the unscripted, unedited bit. Let me just open some curtains so I've got some daylight. We are... It's another... We've got the tail end of the storm. So... the weather report last night, because I can't record when it's windy and it's rainy. So... I had to try and find a gap in the weather, and the weather last night said it wasn't going to rain until like 1 o'clock, and it's actually 12 o'clock now. I've got enough battery power left. I've just got enough battery power left to record this. It said it wasn't going to rain until 2, so I was like, right, I'll get up really early in the morning and I'll finish right in the episode, then I'll double check it, then hopefully I've got time to record it. So I woke up at 4. And then I sat down to start doing my work, and then the weather report said, oh no, it's not going to rain at 1, it's going to rain at 9 and 10 and 11 and 12. And I was like, oh, you bugger. So that was really annoying. And then, so I started writing, and I gave myself a little break, and then I looked at my phone again, and then the weather report said, oh no, we've decided it's going to rain at 1. Oh, so I was like, right, or maybe I've got enough time to record it. And now it's just started raining at 12. Well done, Met Office. They just make it up as they go along. I think literally half the time they're checking reports, and then there must be one person there who's just literally looking out the window and going, oh, it's starting to rain. Well, let's change the report. Oh, it's raining. Oh, I think that's what they do. Anyway, this is done. That's great, because this week we have got a week of rain, and because I live in a boat, and because the roof is made of steel, when it rains it goes like it echoes really loud, and it's impossible to record anything when it's raining and it's windy and the boat's moving around. So I'm lucky to get that done. Anyway, it's done. Could be worse. I met a great thing about living on boats is you meet new people all the time. I met a new boater called Ian yesterday. Very nice. I was walking up to him to say hello, and his dog bounded right up to me and didn't even say hello. Did that thing where dogs turn to their side and they're like, right, stroke me. And he was like, my dog never does that to anyone. I was like, he knows I'm a sucker. So that was nice. Anyway, he's just moved onto his boat. He's got through the winter. It was -6, -7. It's horrific in a boat, because even though you may think it's cold where you are, don't forget a third of our boat, or a quarter, is underwater. Therefore, anything below our knee is underwater. Therefore, even if I have the fire on, I could put a glass of water on the floor, and even in a hot boat in the morning, it will be chilled water. He doesn't have a fire on his boat. He's bought a new boat, and he said, I'll admit it, rookie error. I bought the boat. I thought it'd be good. It was the right price. Hasn't got a fire on board. So he's freezing, absolutely freezing. Anyway, it happens. Anyway, did I say welcome to Extra Mile, the unscripted, unedited bit? As mentioned, we do a little bit of waffle. There's some quiz questions, and then we can dive into the rest of this episode, because don't forget, last week, there's things I couldn't tell you, but now obviously I can, because we revealed everything. So, just want to say thank you to new Patreon subscriber. Thank you to Denise Carter. So thank you, Denise, for becoming a Patreon subscriber. It's very much appreciated. Thank you very much. Thank you to everyone who continues to support the show. It really is much appreciated. So thank you very much. Don't forget, you could do that as little as $3 a month, £2 a month. Lots of goodies go on there. I used to post my location videos on social media to draw people in. Now it's solely a Patreon thing. So, I spend a lot of time. I make them really nice, but only patrons see them now. Let's do the quiz questions, and let's see how many of them you get. Don't forget, I haven't edited the episode yet. I'm going to have a cheese sandwich with spring onions in a bit. I deliberately went out. When I met Ian yesterday, I deliberately went out, and I was like, I've got to go, because I've got to buy some cheesy Wotsits and some spring onions for my cheese sandwich. That's how exciting my life is. And of course, some Alka-Seltzer for Eva, because she's got a bit of a bugger of a one today. Big old hangover. Here's the quiz questions. Let's see how many of them you got. Question number 1: what kind of shop was the surveillance flat above? Question number 2: what job was Alan Peary doing when he met Sharon? Question number 3: his dad came from what city? Question number 4: what topic was he good at school? I hate those sentences where you have to have 2 ats in it. No, it never looks or sounds good. What topic was he good at school? We'll go for that. Question number 5. What was his first job? Question number 6. What was the first train station where he worked at? Question number 7. What job was he then promoted to? Although briefly. And question number 8. Linda's surname was what? Answers at the end, of course. Right, let's go through all of our stuff here. So, hang on. I need to. Sounds like someone is coming through the lock. We had -3 yesterday, so that the lock is really, really. So the canal in front of me is really, really icy, and So it's set in front of us, but I know it's icy because when the boat moves, I can hear it scraping against the side, which can be a little unnerving if you're not used to it. So let's go back to the lair, the hideout, the rapist lair that was in Lesness Abbey Woods. Rightfully, after the police had kind of unearthed it, they demolished it just to make sure that no one else could find it. They kept surveillance on it for quite a while, thinking that potentially he may come back, or potentially he may be in other parts of the woods watching them. This was an area where, obviously, as mentioned, a 16-year-old girl had already been raped, as well as the 33-year-old mother who was raped in front of her 3-year-old son and their pet poodle. We don't know whether that was Peary or not. The problem is they all seem to be relatively similar. They all have similar methods. As mentioned before, it's not like murder where, you've got a knife or a gun or a rope or poison or things like that. It's standard, isn't it? Come behind someone, put your hand over their mouth, a knife to the throat, threaten them, drag them off into a woods or bushes. It's a standard. It's standard with a lot of rapists, unfortunately. So we don't know whether it was him. One of the suspects seen in and around the area was said to be around 35, short sandy hair, with an earring in his left ear, so it could be Peary. Wearing a brown t-shirt, faded jeans, white trainers, again could be him, but then again might not be. There's a lot of them who seem to be same height, same age-ish. Only when they were different, like with the... if you go to the Mackay episodes, there was one of the suspects, obviously, as mentioned, had a Mediterranean or Arabic appearance, and one of them was said to have very heavy pockmarked face. So that, identifies them clearly, but you don't really seem to have anyone here who's easy to identify. Obviously, the police did all their work. Forensics came in. They did a great job. This was an era where forensics, unlike today, where they can get basic details very quickly, and other bits will take a couple of days. Back then, weeks, months. It was a long process, and let's not forget that it's not like they could get a full DNA breakdown, because that wasn't the era. What we're talking about here is just basic blood grouping, which if he's like AB negative, great, but if he's O positive or something like that, it's kind of redundant, really. So yeah, they finally some teenage boys came forward who were in some sources they says that they're scouts, in others it said they were army cadets, but they said that they dug it themselves. They were learning to kind of make a little camp themselves. They'd stopped using it a year before, but the stuff inside the camp, they said it wasn't theirs. Inside the tunnel, the candle, the brush, the mug, the sugar, the air freshener, all stuff like that wasn't theirs. And as mentioned, the blouse, the stockings and the knickers couldn't be identified. Police also said they couldn't determine if these were part of a crime or if someone was just a pervert and, used ladies' clothes to kind of get themselves off. So it's unlikely that this is Peary's nest, because as we've seen before, he travels, he moves, and he seems to see women and make the decision there and then that he's going to attack them. And of course, he's got that time scale, which is really weird as well. We do have other attackers in and around this era. I was going to dive into this during this moment, but I know that Paul at True Crime Enthusiast has done a really good series on it. So he did the railway attackers, railway rapists, so John Duffy and David Mackay. So if you can go and listen to that if you want to. I was going to draw attention to it on here. Their crime spree was 1982 to 1986, so it works in and around that area, and some of their methods were very similar. So sometimes when you type in, if you do a search, like sometimes you use the news archives, and you type in the railway rapists, it would come up with Peary occasionally, but then also these guys as well. I was going to put them in part of this series, but I made the decision that we really just needed to focus on Peary, and that even though there were other rapists working the system at the same time, I really just wanted to focus on these guys, Peary, and who he was and what he was about, and not confusing it with the fact that potentially there's 3 or 4 rapists working the same network at the same time with very same methods. But Peary definitely seems to be the most prolific one, and I think a lot of the other rapists got away with it because because of the confusion that was what was going on at the same time. As we see with trying to find details about Alan Peary is a real pain in the arse, because his name is Alan, A-L-L-A-N. Obviously, some people spell Alan, A-L-A-N. You got Peary as well, P-E-A-R-E-Y. And the press spelt it multiple ways, so it's a real pain in the ass trying to find details about him. I've pretty much put everything I can find in here. Obviously, little details didn't make it in. He liked football. Well, that was useful. Different things as well. I think he was in the Scouts when he was a young boy. I found news articles where he's briefly mentioned where he's kind of doing things in the local community to raising stuff for charity and something to do with fireworks as well. He was in local football teams, which you'd expect being a young boy. There doesn't seem to be anything in his past where you would point to a moment where you'd say, yes, this is someone who's going to turn into an absolutely horrific young man. I couldn't find any early crimes for him. Let's not forget, his first crime was when he was 19. If he was under 18, it would be unlikely that they'd mention his name in a newspaper. They would probably just say a young boy, age 15. So he may have gone to reform before. I think it's highly likely that he committed other attacks before that first one when he was 19. That was the one, obviously, it was so horrific he went to the Old Bailey for. But I think prior to that, I think there has to be earlier ones in there, because you don't just start and do something horrific like that. Early life scenes are very ordinary, though. As we can see, he leaves school. He's not bright, but he does okay. He gets loads of manual jobs. He seems to last a little while. He's not outstanding, but he's satisfactory. He's got a couple of friends. He's getting girlfriends. Nothing amazing. Other details, he liked karate and he loved his dogs, who were Alsatians. Again, I didn't put that in the episode because it really doesn't suit anything. The attack on the 16-year-old girl, so the very first attack October 1968. So she was travelling between Charing Cross and Dartford. So obviously that goes through London Bridge, Hither Green, Lee, Mottingham and Bexley. So it's part of the Dartford Loop. In and around that point, we know that he was working as a railway porter. That's not one of the quiz questions. It's likely that... See, there's almost no details on this at all. And even with it going to the Old Bailey, there's no details on that. And obviously, because it's 1968, and they've only digitised the cases up until 1913 at the moment. Therefore, there's no details on this at all. It's one of those cases that just didn't appear anywhere. He was arrested the next day, so it's likely that someone who worked on the network recognised him, because let's not forget he's working as a porter, so everyone knows him. He was charged initially with attempted murder, so that shows how serious it was, but then it was reduced to attempting to render a woman incapable with intent. It also said that he exposed himself, but obviously there would have been a significant level of violence there because they charged him with attempted murder. So that shows how bad it was. But as a 19-year-old, possibly for a first offence, he served less in and around a year in a local borstal. So that's all we know about that. But then again, so that's 1968, 1969. I think it looks like when arrested, he may have spent a year on remand, probably at a borstal. So by the time that he was on trial at the Old Bailey, he would have served almost a year on remand. So after the trial, he probably only did like another month or another 2 months on borstal, or he may have been released. He may have gone to court and they may have said, okay, we're going to charge you with 1 year in borstal, and then they look at the calendar and they go, okay, well, you're free to leave. It could be as simple as that. So horrible to think. Obviously, his wife Linda was able to give some details about his life, which was really useful afterwards. It wasn't very negative about her. She wasn't trying to attack him. She was interviewed about it afterwards, and she was. When you read her reports, it's very plain and simple and she doesn't glamorize anything, and she doesn't underplay it. She just really, it's so her wording, I really like. It really goes nice and simple, and we're able to dive into their life. We're able to see where they get married, and also it was really useful because it gave me an insight into all the areas where Alan had lived throughout his life. So where his parents had grown up, where he'd grown up, where he'd gone to school, all the different roads where they lived. So quite a lot in Erith. So Winifred Road and Bexley Road. So all these kind of areas where his attacks would happen, so, which is why he's able to pick these areas. He's working for British Rail, so he knows all the routes, he knows the timetable, he knows the trains, he knows the compartments, he knows exactly which ones to pick. But also, because he lives in these areas as well, he not only does he know every road, every way in and every way out, he knows every single alley and nook and cranny, and in his spare time, I didn't mention this in the episode, but in his spare time, he loved, because he was a bit of a loner, he loved walking through the woods. So he knows these woods incredibly well. Like, he knows every single path, he knows the bushes, he knows where he'll be seen, and he knows where he won't be seen as well. Hence, even some of these fields, like Falconwood Field, when you look at Falconwood Field, it's nothing. It's like a plain field, and it's on the south side is the train station, and then on the east side is houses, and then the north side is another set of woods. But it's flat, and you can walk across it in a couple of minutes. But he knows that, and he knows exactly where to attack, and he knows exactly where he needs to do things and what he needs to do. So he knows these areas incredibly well, which is why he's able to escape. But also, it's that whole unremarkable thing. As people said, he didn't come across as someone who they thought would be a rapist. And even with his first wife, Linda, even she said, she knew he'd gone to prison for assaulting a girl, but she thought it was for stealing a handbag or something, and he never told her anything about it. And as you can probably expect as well, you wouldn't turn around to someone you married and go, so why were you in prison for? What was it? Rape? You maybe there's a big chunk of you probably doesn't want to know that as well. Or he probably lied, and she was like, okay, I believe you. Let's not forget, he's an unremarkable person. He doesn't seem to come across in real life as a shitbag. Obviously, he's a shitbag in real life with his attacks. But in real life, everyone just said he was a little bit dull, a little bit boring. You wouldn't expect him to get up to much. Obviously, I might scroll down to the letters, I think. Let me just double check and see what else is here. Amazing with the report by Carol X. That's all, obviously, is mentioned in here because all these women were sexually assaulted or raped. Obviously, we won't mention their names at all. Therefore, it's quite vague. I deliberately give very vague details about who they are. With this one, we call her Carol X only because she gave an interview with the Daily Express, and therefore they gave her the name Carol X. Therefore, they could reference her. But yeah, she gave a really full and detailed account about everything that went on, and the police said, she was amazing. She was very forthright, clearly upset, and clearly a little bit angry as you'd rightfully suspect. But they could tell with the way that she was phrasing everything that she wasn't glamorizing it or letting her emotions run away with it, as would almost certainly happen. Like, she was trying to be as clear as possible because she knew at this moment she had to get the exact information to the police and make it absolutely clear exactly what happened and be as factually accurate as possible. They don't need to hear things glossed or the emotion of it, which is going to carry it through. She was just very factually accurate, and therefore when she was describing him as well, they were like, yep, we know exactly who this guy is, we've just got to find him. And of course, as the police said, in the last episode, I think there's always the problem that when they set up the rape squad, as they called it, that it was primarily men, and because they were used to chasing robbers or thieves and murderers and people like that, they didn't really have the experience of dealing with chasing rapists. So they were, although they don't admit it, they were probably quite inexperienced on this as well. So it was a learning curve for them as well, trying to work out what they needed to do. And even though at that point there was a little bit of insensitivity about saying, look, we know we know that the first thing you want to do is to run home and get clean, inverted commas, and wash. But this is washing away all the evidence. And although that's probably something that someone who's been raped doesn't want to hear, it was true, and it was a statement that they needed to make clear. And as you can see here, it really worked as well, because even though she was absolutely traumatized and crying and upset, first thing she did was need to call the police. I mean, she needed to call her mum and dad, which she did, but she needed to call the police. They arrived. Good statements, good connections with her. She got on really well with them. She said they were really sensitive and, good and kind to her. They described her as cooperative, angry but sensible, and above all observant, which was absolutely vital for them. Therefore, this was kind of the step forwards. They'd already got loads of reports already, but this was the step forwards. This was kind of, okay, he's back, he's in the area. We've got all these extra details about him. With every attack, extra details were added to the look, the gap between the tooth. So that was kind of key as well. Smelling of alcohol and stale cigarettes. I mean, I don't know about you. I would probably expect that from a rapist. Probably wouldn't expect them to smell nice. Faded jeans, bomber jacket. Sometimes clean shaven, sometimes not. There is a kind of let's not forget, as he's attacking mostly weekday between 12 and mid-afternoon. So it's likely he was doing this when his girlfriend was at work and he potentially was out looking for work. Because even though he'd remained in good employment for a while after having been convicted of the assault in 1968, obviously after that it was harder for him to find work because he's a convict. People obviously they're going to go, what were you in prison for? And he'd go, oh well, obviously he'd say, rendering a woman insensible or whatever the line was. But even that is still horrific. I'm sure he probably said assault, but even with that, it's like, you're going to hire someone. You got a choice between hiring someone for a job who's got a history of assault or someone who doesn't have a history of assault. You're going to hire the person who doesn't have the history of assault. It's kind of common sense. And maybe because this was local as well, maybe that news report was a little bit more well known than it is now. Because obviously, I don't know anyone who knows that. Let me just scrolling down. So the covert surveillance, I think this is great. So even with that 7-month gap, the police, it's not like the police went, oh, well, he's finished. Let's disband everything. Let's pack everything away. It kept going. They were like, he's going to come back at some point. Every single rape that happened, they would investigate that one. But also at the same time, they would try and piece it in and say, okay, is this him? Is this the Beast of Belvedere? But so we don't know whether it is a full 7-month gap. I mean, maybe there are other attacks that he can't recall, or he's not willing to admit to, or they couldn't attribute it to him. Maybe he went outside the network where he'd normally go. Let's not forget, the news coverage had gone huge by that point. There was a protest outside Belvedere police station. He didn't live too far away from the police station at that point, so he would almost certainly have read about it on the newspapers. It was on the news. I'm going to try and use the original police news footage of the protest, hopefully in the edit. I downloaded it a while ago, so hopefully that'll make it in. He may even have been outside. As we know with everyone who's a criminal, when there's a moment that happens when like with an arsonist, when a building is caught on fire, the police, what they do is they always get the camera out and they're filming it, but also at the same time they're filming the people who are watching the fire, because normally the arsonist will be watching the fire. And as with Sloan murders, was Ian Huntley, he gave an interview to the police and went, it's really upsetting about this, the murder of these 2 girls. But they know full well that the murderer is likely to do that. And so it's likely that he was probably standing in or near Belvedere police station when this protest was going on. It may have shook him up. It may have caused him to go underground. We don't know why the 7-month gap. Maybe his relationship with Sharon was better. Maybe they were trying the idea of artificial insemination at that moment. So maybe that was a a potential reason why he stopped, or maybe they just didn't find him. I certainly think that he would have been spooked and he would have gone a little bit underground. What have we got? So yeah, the surveillance kicked up. 18 spots. We don't know where all these 18 spots are, but the only one we do know is about 21-year-old WPC Julie Edwards, who was on observation duty. One of, I think there was around 50 officers working in rotation for weeks, which is a lot when you think about it. When you think about the amount of police in a borough, I think sometimes people think, oh, there's thousands, but there isn't. There really isn't. There's not a lot of police. It's especially in this country, it's been so underfunded for so long, and there's so many police stations shut down. And you know, every new government that comes in goes, oh yeah, we'll get rid of the police, and then they start going, oh, we're going to invest in the police, and you go, no, you're not. It's the last government said they're going to invest in the police, and you're just taking what they're doing. It's just bullshit, isn't it? But yeah, it's badly underfunded. So 50 officers working in rotation is a hell of a lot. They had to bring in a lot of them from Met Police and other boroughs as well. But she was just one of many who was on observation duty. They didn't know when he would attack again. They'd given descriptions of him, and just great observation, really. She was commended for her coolness and presence of mind. She saw a man loitering at the same bus stop on Erith Road, almost opposite the flat. Startling resemblance. She called for the detectives. They trailed him. He boarded a bus. He made it about a mile north and he headed towards Birch Walk. And as he was walking down the wooded towpath where two of the rapes had previously happened, that's when the undercover detectives sprung on him and he was arrested. Let's just see if we can go down. As mentioned in the episode, he told police he would like to donate his eyes on condition that he's set free. That was originally one of his things. Linda said the offer was simple. He wanted to be out of prison and he felt that was his way to get out. So obviously he's not remorseful about this at all. She said he'd heard that in America a man had donated his eyes and was released. His lawyer, Alan Thompson, said the offer was made as Mr. Peary is so full of remorse for what he's done. He also later said that he would donate his kidneys as well. I mean, just bollocks. Just utter bollocks. It's, as you can see, there's nothing remorseful about it. He's just thinking about himself. And all these tears, all this, oh, for my victims, oh, I hope they forgive me. It's just him thinking about himself. As mentioned, the Heidi Minilk murder, I can see why the police would investigate him. There are similarities, you know, the attack on the train. The route isn't the same, so it's Charing Cross to West Wickham, and the route that we're on doesn't fit in the loop that we're talking about. But, you know, he moved all around the area, so it could be possible. She was stabbed. We have no reference to him stabbing anywhere, but let's not forget he almost committed a brutal murder almost 5 years before that, so it could be likely. And obviously she was screaming, as the boys said. He opened the door and he threw her out of the carriage onto the track and then escaped. Obviously this was not him, because they said the guy had a generally oval face. His hair was swept back. He had narrow eyes and appeared to be squinting. He was 5'6", 45-ish, dark greasy hair, and his face looked like an Arab, or as if he hadn't shaved. Obviously this is a quote from the era, which obviously is not Peary at all, ever. So he definitely didn't murder Heidi Minilk, and of course we still don't know who did murder Heidi Minilk. In his letters, he sent letters to his ex-wife Linda and their children, explaining the reasons for his attacks, which he blamed on the failed vasectomy. To Linda he wrote, "It seemed to me that the kids were pulling away from me after the divorce. Then Sharon wanted children of her own. Although she said it really didn't matter, I could see deep down that it did matter. This hurt me very much, and we went to we went to have the reversal operation, believing this would help, but it failed and Sharon seemed to be pulling away from me. I really thought she'd rejected me. It was the first blow for me. I could no longer think straight and started to lose control of my feelings. Everywhere I looked, people knew I was no longer a man. I felt like a freak. Everyone was laughing. I finally cracked up and could not remember what I was doing. I had to hate. So as you can see there, he's blaming everyone and everything in and around his little bubble to why he committed these sexual assaults, when of course when you look at the details, he was committing sexual assaults and violence against women way before this, like 15 years before. So him saying that there, it may have been a trigger that led to the spree, but that didn't make him the horrific rapist and terrorizer that he became. That was already there way before. But that's the problem, is we don't know why. We don't know what caused him to become this kind of person. That is hidden in his past. I would love to know more about his early life, but there's literally Alan Peary is one of these people where there's nothing written about him, very little. There's no books about him, there's no documentaries about him. It's, I think, because it was a little bit of a provincial case, and we are post the Yorkshire Ripper. Everything gets dominated. Like, everyone in the world has heard about, well, almost has heard about the Yorkshire Ripper, but no one has heard about Alan Peary. Like, it does not exist. And even if you type in the Beast of Bexley Heath, and originally I was going to call it the Beast of Bexley Heath because that was one of the other titles that they gave him. But the problem, so I called it Beast of Belvedere because that's what they also called him. The problem is, if you type in the Beast of Bexley, it comes up with a panther type thing that was loose in the woods in and around that area. So that throws things off as well. Anyway, I think that's it. I think that's all I wanted to say about that. Yeah, we did the bit about him. I left it with the ending with the him and his wife wanting to have a child by artificial insemination. I felt there was a lot of irony to that about him being a sexual assaulter, and all he's focused on, like, he's been convicted, and all he's focused on is, can I have a child with my wife? And it's like he approached the MP for Greenwich, Guy Barnett, to press his case. Sharon said, I don't care what people think. I know Alan is kind and loving. If it is possible for him to give me a baby, that would be wonderful. But just, horrible. Anyway, I think that's it. He was due for release in 2005. There's no reports of him being released. His name doesn't appear anywhere. The likely he may have changed his name. If he is still alive today, he would be 76 years old. I know nothing more about Alan Peary. He was a real bugger to search. So let me go back to the quiz questions. Let's see how many of them you got. And there we go. Right, question number 1. What kind of a shop was the surveillance flat above? It was a car showroom, but if you look now, it's a paint store or a paint shop. Question number 2, what job was he doing when he met Sharon? He was a milkman. Question number 3, his dad came from what city? Durham. Question number 4, what topic was he good at school? Woodwork. Question number 5, what was his first job? He was a trainee machinist. Question number 6, what was the first train station that he worked at? It was, of course, Dartford. Question number 7, what job was he promoted to after that? Trainee signalman. And question number 8, Linda's surname was what? Gillett. So there we go, folks. That's it. That's all done. I hope you enjoyed that episode, if indeed you can. Next week's episode, I think it's a one-parter. I don't know what it is, actually. I've researched them all. I just don't know what's next because I've been so desperate to record this and then record the next one, and I haven't recorded I haven't edited the last one yet because I was trying to find this gap before a week of storm and rain comes in. So I haven't edited those yet. I need to do all the social media and stuff. And then we'll do the next episode. But all the ones I've planned for this year, all very exciting, all very interesting. So if you enjoyed it, thank you very much. Please do leave a review. That's much appreciated. Join Patreon if you can, and tell your friends about it. that because obviously personal recommendations is the best way to learn about podcasts. So thank you very much. Have yourself a good week, folks. Stay safe and be good. And here comes the moment where my boat goes very silent. Lots of love. Bye-bye.
There wouldn't be a girl on Pitcairn once they reached the age of 10 that was still a virgin.
I'm journalist Luke Jones, and for almost 2 years, I've been investigating a shocking story that has left deep scars on generations of women and girls from Pitcairn.
People will get away with what they can get away with.
In the Pitcairn trials, I'll be uncovering a story of abuse and the fight for justice that has brought a unique Pacific island to the brink of extinction. Listen now, wherever you get your podcasts.
Want more true crime? This podcast and loads more are part of the Always True Crime Network. It's packed with box sets to binge and twisted tales you won't find anywhere else. Find your next podcast obsession at alwaystruecrime.com.